Aw, man. This is disappointing, isn't it? Today we are talking about a Montreal Canadiens prospect, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a hand in pumping this guy's tires and getting the hype train started about him, etc., etc. Because earlier in his career, he was just such a good defender that we all wanted to see prosper in the Montreal Canadiens system. Today we are talking about Canadiens' 2019 third-round pick in the 64th overall spot, Mattias Norlinder. A guy who we all thought had the potential to become, let's just say, a good puck-moving top-four defenseman at the NHL level. The entire story with Norlinder is always pretty good because when you talk about the draft pick that was initially used to acquire him in the first place, this draft pick was acquired by the Canadiens in a trade with another draft pick. It actually kind of stems from the Nick Suzuki, Max Pacioretty trade from 20 whatever it was. The pick the Canadiens got was then traded down for this third round pick that was used to select Norlinder. And the interesting thing about him was that when he was drafted in the third round, people were kind of questioning the selection because, hey, Norlinder is a 2000-born 6'1", 194 left-handed defenseman who was an overager at the time. He was initially draft eligible in 2018, but he wasn't taken. However, in his 2019 season, after posting up 21 points in 30 games in the J20, Super Elite, and 6 points in 14 games with Modo in the Allsvenskan, he was indeed selected. Now, as Norlinder and his time in Sweden progressed, he played with Modo a little bit more, he played with Frölunda too. There was a really good amount of hype for this guy, bolstered up because of some of the analysts in Sweden. There were conversations about how Norlinder was the best skater that Modo had since Nick Lidstrom. And, now when you say it like that, yeah, I could understand why some people thought that the hype train was a little bit too strong for this guy. But there were articles back in La Presse talking about how this guy was the next Lidstrom. I think it was his coach in Sweden who initially said that the guy was like Lidstrom. It was crazy. Lidstrom is one of the best defensemen of all time. And Mattias Norlinder, while good, while very solid, while a nice puck-moving defenseman, had that label attached to him at an early age, maybe even to his detriment. He eventually played for the Canadiens and the Laval Rocket for 21-22. 22-23 saw him play only for Laval, 19 points in 67 games played. And a lot of the sentiment for the Habs and their younger guys was that, hey, they have quite a few players. Of course, Norlinder is here, but you also have other younger guys like Arber Xhekaj, like Justin Barron, like Caden Gooley, who are all going to be battling for spots, and you have the other players like Kovacevic and Savard, and for a while, Jeff Petrie, too, that it's going to be difficult for anybody to really find themselves a solidified 82-game role in the NHL. There are just so many moving parts that your job can be in and out as quickly as it can get. And so for Norlinder, because he was lumped into this mix of guys as well, sure, he didn't produce like crazy in the AHL, but he did have a pretty respectable amount of hype for him as a prospect. We sort of thought, okay, maybe Norlinder could get a chance to play next year, maybe he'll stay in Laval, maybe he'll be able to make it click after a season in North America. But then we had ourselves this update from Grant McCagg on August 17th, 2023, so a few days ago. Mattias Norlinder has a year left on his NHL contract, but he played in an SHL exhibition game the other day. He won't be back in Laval, and don't look for the Canadiens to re-sign him. He was once considered a top 5 prospect in the system, but he never adjusted to North American rinks and was passed by others. And just to kind of illuminate how funny this situation is, there was a reply to this Grant McCagg tweet. Not a fan of the snake, but he predicted it. Now, for me personally, I have no idea who the snake is. What are they talking about? Somebody want to let me know in the comments who that is? Grant McCagg goes out there and replies saying, yeah, that was by no means going out on a limb. I no longer had Norlinder ranked as one of Montreal's top 30 prospects, so it's no surprise. Too many kids that will need ice time in Laval this season. And then you have a reply from Mike Lemieux that goes out there and contradicts what McCagg says. It's a tweet from McCagg from a year ago. Norlinder with the puck in the offensive zone can be a treat to watch. A full season in Laval will do wonders. And I know this is kind of backtracking on the guy because he had a bad take and he retconned it, etc., but at the end of the day, this is what we thought about Norlinder as far back as a year ago. hey, he's a good offensive defenseman, he's got good skills and passing, and his mobility is pretty solid too. This guy could thrive in a season in Laval. But he didn't, and he did not adjust much, to the point that Grant McKegg concludes that he is not comfortable sticking around. The reason I say it like that is because we had ourselves an article published yesterday talking about how this report was apparently false. It's lapresse.ca with the update from, when was it? Yesterday, Monday, August 21st, published by Matthias Brunet. If you go down into this article, it has a little write-up about Norlinder. Translated from French into English, the article says this: a recent rumor suggested the return of young defender Mattias Norlinder to Sweden after only one full season with the Laval Rocket. Norlinder did participate in training camp in Frölunda, but he should, in principle, head for Quebec soon for the camp of the Habs. This is the information received by the organization from the agent of this young left-handed D. A bunch of Habs fans also talked about this on the subreddit. The update from McKegg was posted onto Twitter. And yeah, you look at the comments here. Remember the Norris-Linder hype train? Good times. And yeah, I do remember the Norris-Linder hype train. I remember talking about this guy as a future Norris winner. We made a video about that. Best since Nick Lidstrom, eh? Yeah. Whoever originally compared him to Lidstrom, I think it was a coach of his, single-handedly put Norlinder on the path to being one of the most overhyped prospects we've ever had. I had my hopes for him for a while, but we as a fan base were betting on him becoming a top-pairing D-man for a bit too long because of that. Another comment here says, it's a shame that he hasn't worked out, but I find it annoying how people downplay just how much he was hyped and say things like, oh, he was never that good. Just 2 years ago, he was number 4 on the top 25 under 25 list, ahead of Caden Gooley, and a lot of people saw him as a future top 4D. Now that he's fallen short of these perhaps unfair expectations, people dismiss how hyped they were about him so they could hype up the next prospect to unrealistic levels. There's another comment here that I thought was hilarious. Guys, I'm starting to think we won't have a Josh Brook Mattias Norlinder top pair like we predicted, and you know, I said at the beginning that I've played a part in probably hyping up these guys a bit too much as well. I don't want to make it seem like I'm on a grand horse or anything, but I do make these YouTube videos, and they do get quite a bit of views, and I do get a bunch of comments of guys saying, yeah, I'm really excited for this guy. Thanks for making this video, Lego. And, like, people will talk to me in DMs saying, look at how good this guy is. Like, look at this goal he scored or this assist he made. Like, it's a thing in Montreal. And I'm for sure guilty of falling into that trap as well. I thought Josh Brook was going to be a top 4 D-man. I thought Norlinder had that potential too. We made the video asking if he could be a Norris winner. Sure, it's partly for the clicks, but it's also partly because I just like talking about these guys. And I feel like for most of y'all who watch these videos, you could understand that I'm also on this hype train most of the time. I'm not making these videos and lying to you, telling you that I think a guy is pretty good when I don't think he is. Like, I'm trying to be honest about these things. For Norlinder, it was just really tough to see him transition to the AHL and get inevitably passed by so many guys. So for now, the update is that he will come back to the Montreal Canadiens, but if we assume that things don't go that way, if he does stay in Sweden, he doesn't come back, and the Montreal Canadiens don't end up re-signing him, then that's goodbye, I guess. He might have already played his last game in North America. Who really knows? And if that actually does go down, then all of a sudden the Max Pacioretty-Nick Suzuki trade looks even worse, because even though the Canadiens got some pretty good pieces out of it, they got Thomas Tatar, of course they got Nick Suzuki, and then they got the draft pick that they traded down to become Norlinder, even though it looks pretty good still because Nick Suzuki is a beast, there was a time where we thought this might have been like the greatest trade the Canadiens have made in recent memory because they got all these amazing assets, and Thomas Tatar was awesome, and Norlinder was a future Nick Lidstrom caliber player. Like, hype trains are real. Be careful about them. I know just a few days ago we made a few videos about Montreal Canadiens prospects that can also become a little bit overhyped, but hopefully the cycle does not repeat to the same extent that we think that this guy could become Lidstrom. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Mattias Norlinder, a guy whom we all thought had much more to show for at the National Hockey League level, but who will unfortunately go down as one of the more overhyped names in Canadiens lore, assuming he stays in Sweden and he does not re-sign with the Habs. Of course, if he does, like, re-sign, then he comes back and he's all good and fine in the AHL, then okay, this entire video was pointless. But for now, based off of what we have heard from Grant McKegg, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed, this video 99, and bye.